Welcome to the What to Read Next podcast. In this podcast, your host, Lori Amin, will interview published authors to chat about their work, journey to getting published, and their book recommendations. If you share a passion for books and always looking for your next read, then join us.
Hi, Katie. Welcome to What to Read Next podcast.
Hi, thanks so much for having me.
So happy to have you here. So tell us a little bit about yourself.
I am an author. I write saucy romances that are like saucy dark erotic romance. I guess this is the term. And I've written over 60, I think, at this point. So I've been around a minute.
Oh my gosh, I love this. I feel like we have a healthy backlist. People are where to start, and you have a little bit of everything. For people okay, what are you selling? What are you in the mood? And there's Katee Robert for you.
Yeah. My 10-year anniversary of publishing is coming up next year, I think. So it's there's been lots of different genres I've explored within the romance subgenre in that time.
Well, what's your romance journey? Were you a romance reader before you were a writer, or which one came first?
I, like a lot of people, found romance when I was 13, 14-ish. My mom was a big Iris Johansen fan. Her thrillers, my mom wasn't a romance reader. And so I read her thrillers and realized that at the library that she had romances. And I was like, well, we'll give this a shot. And so I read The Magnificent Rogue, which holds up pretty well. I reread it recently, in the last year, and it's a scorcher. It is a scorcher. So from there, I devoured her backlist, and I kind of wandered off and got into fantasy and urban fantasy when that was really hot in the early 2000s, and then found myself wanting more of the romantic elements in the urban fantasy, and so I kind of came back through paranormal romance and never left.
I love this. And so what was your writing journey? What inspired you to start writing novels?
Actually, so I have always written stuff. Back in high school, I loved it. It was my thing. But I got married very young, and my ex-husband was military, so we moved to Germany when I was 18 and had a baby. And so I was very isolated, didn't speak the language, and eventually had 2 children under 3. And so I kind of pulled, it feels so weird to say this, but I pulled a Nora Roberts, and that I had to write so I didn't burn the house down because I was going nuts. And I was actually inspired by Twilight in that I was Stephenie Meyer wrote a book and got published, and look how successful it is, and wow, that's really cool, and I bet if she can do it, I could probably do it. And so I did not sell my first book or my second. Number 8 is when I sold, fast forward a couple years and a divorce, and picked up a book and fixed it and submitted it and sold directly to a publisher at the time. And which was Sci-Fi Romance, which is no longer in print. It doesn't exist anymore. But from there was right around the time 50 Shades was really taking off. Mm-hmm. Or had been taking off, and the whole wave, people were freaking out over, erotic romance. And my editor came to me and was like, hey, I know you want to do this full time, because I was a single mom working a minimum wage job. I was yeah, I want to do this full time. And they were launching a new imprint of short erotic romance. And I just happened to write the book super fast, put it in, or submit it, and it launched the imprint with another book, and just caught that 50 Shades wave, and and from there it's history, more or less. Lots of ups and downs since then, but I've been writing full time since 2012. Oh
my gosh, that's amazing! Congratulations, that's a big feat,
It's been there's been some ups and downs. The industry has changed a lot in the last 10 years, but yeah, I'm still here.
Yeah. And so what's your writing process? You because you produce a lot of books. So do you write every day? What's your writing cave,
So I am one of those writers that if I don't write every day, I forget how to do it. And so I don't I have a very high output, but when you math it out, I write maybe 2,000 to 3,000 words a day, if that, depending on the day and what's going on in life. But I usually get up and write in the morning from like 6-ish to 10 or 11, and then use my afternoons for administrative stuff or don't work or whatever. Yeah, I'm a morning writer because once noon hits, it's like I'm Cinderella and my brain is checked out. So, but I do write most mornings, most days a week, I would say, which adds up, like when you start doing that math, like it adds up to quite a few books.
Yeah, it does. I can imagine. I think that knowing that your ideal time is in the morning to get that first thing done and then just like allowing yourself to do the rest of the stuff in the afternoon, I think it's more productive. Like you're able to produce, you know.
Yeah, when I like the writing industry is a lot. Everybody has advice, which is awesome. Like people tend to be pretty free with their advice, but the downside of that is there's a lot of like, well, this works for me, and so like it takes a while to figure out what works specifically for you. Like when I draft, I don't edit. I don't go back and look at it. If something changes, I'll leave myself notes to like look back, because if I lose that momentum, then I'm sunk and then I'm in trouble. So, but it took me a really long time to figure that out, because a lot of people edit as they write and that works for them. And I was like, maybe that'll work for me. It doesn't. It really doesn't.
That's really good. I love this. So what has been the process of writing during the pandemic? Has it been any easier, any harder? Like, yeah.
So I am fortunate in that when I get stressed out or overwhelmed or, really depressed, I write more because writing's my escapism. Mm-hmm. And so pandemic, I wrote more words last year than I did have to date, like annually to date, solely because the only place in my house where my family is not sitting on top of me is my office. So I'm like, well, I'm here. I guess I'll work a little more. And so, yeah, it's actually been like really good creatively. Like I discovered last year that I work best when I have quarterly 2 weeks to just have a fun dessert project. And that has opened up like all sorts of new doors for me. And that's where my taboo books came from, is just like, these are just little dessert projects. Like they're not heavy in character or plot. They're just really, really high heat level and like taboo-ish. Mm-hmm. So yeah, the pandemic has obviously been hard, but like creatively, I'm like, well, I guess I'm just going to keep working until I can like look outside and not be totally depressed. We're not there yet. We're not there yet, but
we're not there yet. Oh, but I love your dessert projects so much.
They're just getting wilder as time goes on, so it's going to be really interesting to see what the rest of this year brings when it comes to those.
How do you come up with the ideas? Like, like do they come to you, like, or do you have like an idea tab? Like, because there's so much, travel into.
I have at any given time like probably 20 books in development in my head, like just kicking around, because it looks like I am very impulsive. It looks like, but on the outside, it looks like I'm more impulsive than I am, because usually there's some like thought process that just maybe not at the front of my brain, but it is clicking in the back. And so I have actually a sticky note on my computer that has like these 4 elements create my like overall author brand. So if a project is bonkers and high heat level and like villains or anti-heroes or monster types and really tropey, then usually I'm like, well, we'll just go forward with it and see what happens. The dessert projects specifically, I don't usually, like with the taboo books, I have a list of them that I would like to cover at some point, but usually it's like, what do I feel like writing at this moment, like when I have the time. The other stuff, I schedule it, and as soon as I schedule it with my editor, it has to happen, and so I trap myself intentionally to keep my schedule.
Thank you. I am like so curious about it, especially for prolific writers. Like, how do you keep tabs with all the ideas? And because you dabble into so many different topics, it's just like so curious to do. So
yeah, it's been really interesting. Because I usually have like a foundational series. It's like right now my foundational indie series is the Sabine Valley series. And so those books keep a pretty regular schedule. And then the rest of it is just barely controlled chaos. And of course I have, Neon Gods in my traditional contract, but that's only 3 books, and the 3rd book will be written before the first one comes out right now. I'm writing it right now, and so it will be, my due date is my release date. So those books will be finished. They just take time to come out.
Yeah. So let's talk about Neon Dots. And like, what is the elevator pitch? Cancel door. Just spoiler, I adore it. But let's talk about the elevator pitch.
It's a contemporary retelling of Hades and Persephone, and she's like a socialite type, and he is sort of a underworld-ish, not quite mobster, but like sorta, like adjacent. And she's kind of bargained in marriage to Zeus and doesn't want it, so she runs and ends up with Hades, and sexy shenanigans ensue.
Yes. Yeah, sexy shenanigans ensue. I love that Hades is a cinnamon roll, and in the gooeyest way. Like, she even tells him that he is a cinnamon roll. Like, he's like so nice, even though he's like underworld bad guy,
He's like that. I don't know if you've ever seen that meme of that bat, that cute little baby bat that's like, I am the darkness. Like, that's Hades. Yeah. Like, he's like, I'm a monster and I'm so bad and everyone's scared of me, and everyone around him who like has any kind of contact with him is like, we love you. So, but he's definitely a monster of his own making as far as he's concerned, but like no one else believes it except him.
Yeah. So what was your research to get all the Greek mythology process, like getting the 13 and coming up with like the stories?
Well, like a significant number of us, I was super obsessed with Greek mythology, like growing up, and revisited it again and again. And I mean, you can't throw a rock without hitting a Hades and Persephone retelling, and which is my favorite thing because there's so many different, they pull different elements of the original myth with each different book, and I just love them. So it's the Hades, Persephone, Demeter like relationships is something that I pulled on in the past for like other books, but this time I wanted to be really intentional. And like when I crafted, because my books are all technically contemporary, but I build them up almost like paranormal world building. Mm-hmm. And there's so many gods like in Greek mythology, and so I kind of was like, well, 13's a great number. I like the number 13, so which ones would I put in as like these titles to rule Olympus? Which means some of them, like Hestia, got like left on the side, sorry. But and then from there it was kind of like reverse engineering, because there's always a Zeus in Olympus, but it's not always the same person. It doesn't even have to be a dude. It can be like any gender. It's just the eldest child inherits the title when the former Zeus dies. And so each title has their own little quirk on like how the person is chosen to become that title, and which sounds super confusing, but I promise it's less confusing in the books. But so it's but in this world currently, nobody really believes Hades exists anymore, because the last Hades, as far as like the upper city is concerned, like died 30 years ago. And so it's kind of like he's like the boogeyman of Olympus until he's not. And I love Hades. He doesn't get enough credit. I mean, he's starting to get enough credit because like Lore Olympus is super popular right now, and so everybody's like, oh, Hades is really cool, and I'm like, yes, get on the train, let's go.
Yes, I love it. I love this Hades and Persephone. Like, I read quite a few, but this is like by far one of my favorite ones, because it brings the type of hero that I love to read, but at the same time, it gives me like the sense of like, the whole tension between Hades and Persephone, like the whole process of like, the chemistry, and like, are they gonna do it? Are they gonna get together?
Well, like I love a sunshine and a grumpy, which is like what this story is. But I really, really love a sunshine character who weaponizes it, where it's like it's a mask they used for survival or to keep people at a distance, or like what have you. And that's kind of how I've always envisioned Persephone. It's not necessarily the innocent, like, sweet one, but more like, this is what, like, the mask I wear to survive, like, this world. And so, and she uses it to needle Hades, because of course she does.
Awesome. So what can we expect for the rest of the series?
So the second book is Psyche and Eros. It's a marriage of convenience, like sort of like morality chain, in that there's Aphrodite, is pretty freaking angry for a number of reasons. Like, you're gonna kill that lady right there, and And Psyche was nice to Eros like once ever, and he's like, so he feral cats her and is like, we should get married instead and it'll protect you, and like this is definitely makes sense, don't ask questions. And so they get married to like save her from Aphrodite, and it gets complicated. And then the third book is Helen, Achilles, and Patroclus. I still cannot say his name properly, and I really need to before that book comes out because the Greek names trip me up. So, but it's a menage with those fellows and Helen because I hate Paris with the hate of 1,000 fiery suns, and this is my justice for Helen because she deserved better.
Oh my gosh, I can't wait. So you have a paranormal series, and Queen is coming out soon?
Towards the end of summer. Probably, yeah.
So that actually I dive into it. Like, I don't like blood play, but this book was like full of blood play, and I was like living for it. So.
Yeah, I just, this one came about because it was originally a dessert project, and then it was like, well, I can't fit this all in one book, like dessert project length, so I guess we're gonna do 3. Whoops. But I just, like the idea of, I'm not even a huge vampire person, but it just sort of happened. Like it happened, and there's 3 sexy vampires and 1 lady, and their bites are, orgasmic. It's, I don't know.
Yes, that's what I can explain. Like, it's just like the bites are orgasmics, and there's just a lot of blood, but it works. Like it works. Like, just go for it. And there's like, and it's just like the vampires keep popping up. There's like another one and another one and another one.
Yeah, and it's like, oh, and we all used to date before, so I guess we're just gonna be together, except like kind of angry about it. And yeah, and then there's like a mating bond type element, and it's a lot of like my favorite things in paranormal romance thrown together and like notched up to 10 because I'm me and I can't do anything half measures. So
yes, okay. So I'm really looking forward because you do end with cliffhanger. So like
yes, this will be the last for now series because there will be a spin-off series from the vampires. It's going to be monster romance, but those will each be a different couple in each book, so they will end satisfyingly. The cliffhangers are rough for me too because I feel so bad, but also like I'm sorry, but I couldn't fit it in one book, so we're cliffhangering it. Here we go.
I love this. So let's see. Let's talk about book recommendations. So,
okay,
you're the queen of book recommendations and book talk. I absolutely adore them. Like you're one of the reasons why I go to book talk is to look at your recommendations. And I know you've been the monster, which has been fun. So it was like a little too much, but I'm like, maybe I'll try some monsters. But just pick a theme or pick some trope or specific, and you can give us some book recommendations.
So my favorite trope is one that people are like, I like that, but I didn't know what it's called. It's morality chain, which is like one character, usually the male main character, is like sort of a sociopath. Like their criminal acts vary, but like they have no like moral compass until their love interest shows up and is like, hey, you can't just murder up people or steal stuff or like whatever. And they're like, oh, I guess I'll just adopt your moral compass because I love you. And so that's like my favorite thing ever. And I have 3 books to recommend that if you're, so the first is Blockshot by Kennedy Ryan. Check the content warnings because they're a little hefty. But it's just like from the moment he's like, I don't care who you're with, what you're doing, whatever, like you're the one for me. And he's so unrepentant about it. And it is just like crack for me. Like I love Jared the most. Number 2 is Luca by Theodore Taylor. And I don't know how she does it, but if anybody else wrote the heroes she writes, I would like try to run them over with my car because they're not great people, but they go soft for their heroine, and like it's very textbook morality chain. Like he's like a mobster and she's like trying to be a lawyer, and like you can't murder up people, and he's like, I guess I won't murder people because you asked me not to. Like that one does end on a cliffhanger. So there's like, it's like a duet. And then the final one is Heart of Obsidian by Nalini Singh. Is just Caleb Kerchak. He's just He's like, well, I definitely was going to kill the whole world, but I guess I won't because it would make her sad, so I won't do it. Like, it's just that element of romance is just, I eat it up with a spoon. And so those 3 books, like, really embody that trope and are also, like, really good. So, highly recommend.
Oh my gosh, I love this recommendation. I didn't think about morality change, but it does make a difference. Like, it does, it's a trope that I can now see, I'm like, I do like this trope, you know?
Yeah. Yeah, it's often like enemies to lovers or like some element, like you see it more often in like dark romance because you have the scary bad character and the one who's like soft, and the bad one becomes slightly softer in their romance as a result, but usually not to like other people around them. Like they will still murder up the world, but hesitate a little bit.
Or stuff for the hero or heroine, so I love this. Tell us where you can find you online.
Oh, I'm all over the place. I am most active on Twitter and now TikTok and Instagram. I'm like on Facebook technically, but not really. Like if you want to ever like get interaction with me, Facebook's not the way to go these days. But I'm a Twitter addict. It's all my name. Yeah, and I have a newsletter if you ever want like direct contact news. That's a good way to go about it because social media is so fickle.
And you have a Patreon. So
and yes.
Tell us about the Patreon.
I am a professional. I am very good at plugging myself. Obviously, I forgot I had a Patreon. Yes, I have a Patreon. It was originally set up because people kept asking, like my Mafia series from a couple years ago, people kept asking me, like, what are the characters doing? What are they up to? And, like, I just don't have time to, like, write check-ins for free for people just like in my schedule. And so I crafted, like basically every month my Patreon people vote on what couple or throuple or single person or like whatever that they'd like to see. And then whatever has the most votes, I write a check-in with those people, which has been really interesting seeing what characters people want to see again and again. Or like sometimes they have like types of scenes I'd like or whatever. And it's a really fun creative exercise for me. But I also I ship paperbacks through it, I do audiobooks through it, and then I have a swag box that goes out every other month that has like the signed paperbacks and then like miscellaneous things that I think are super cool, like usually mugs and like some candles or what have you. Like this one is a 20-ounce tumbler that says Sword Cross Guaranteed, which is my brand.
Yes, it's all about the Sword Cross. I did actually ask. So your book, I think it was paranormal. Kara was referred to me to read it, and I was like, "Did the swords cross?" And they were like, "I don't know." And I was like, "I only like when the swords cross."
Same. It feels like a missed opportunity if they don't cross. Like I understand that sometimes that's just not what people want. Like I get that. That's what I want. And so my books will always have, if there are more than one sword, they will cross, or I guess like the menage is always closed entirely.
Yeah. Yeah, I like those close.
Same. I always feel like sad if it didn't happen. I'm like, oh, we could have had it.
You could have I don't know. It just adds some more to the story. Like, the relationship grows. Like, they all have to be together.
Yeah, I just like, and I know in real life poly romance like is all sorts of different varieties and like what have you, and that's awesome that we have that variety in writing as well. But like again, I just want it to cross. I want it to close. I want everybody to be like real intimate explicitly with each other. Like, so that's what I write. And I usually have like some kind of I try to put it in my blurb at the bottom, like if there's like, so that there's some sword crossing, and that's how it works.
I love this. Oh my gosh. Thank you, Katee, for being on the show.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me. This was awesome.
If you enjoyed this podcast, feel free to share with friends, subscribe, rate, and review the show. This is the easiest way to support the podcast. For book recommendations, author interview archives, and other fun book resources and tips, please visit WhatchReNextBlog.com. The Watch Read Next podcast is part of the Frolic Network. To discover new shows to listen and love, please visit frolic.media/podcast. Thank you so much for listening and have a great day.